China urges US, UK, and Japan not to interfere in China's internal affairs after they congratulate Lai Ching-te for election win. Yeah, the Taiwanese election. It happened. Global leaders draw Beijing's ire for congratulating new president. No, you can't acknowledge the fact that Taiwan is its own separate country and has been for like half a century now. No, it's totally just a province of mainland China, even though we have no control and it has its own system and government laws and passport and embassies. No. Third term in power for the pro-sovereignty Democratic Progressive Party. People asked me to cover this, and you know what I said? I said, I think the Taiwanese can handle it. I think they got this, is what I said. And you know what? Look at that. My faith in the Taiwanese people has been rewarded with results. A spokesperson for the U.S. State Department congratulated the Taiwanese people for once again demonstrating the strength of their robust democratic system and electoral process. Joe Biden, who plans to send an unofficial delegation to Taiwan next week, reiterated that the U.S. does not support Taiwanese independence. So again, like this is just like a diplomatic formality. In every practical sense, America treats Taiwan like a separate country, but China is really, really, really bitchy about this, so we have to pretend that we don't. Like, we will do, in every imaginable way, we will regard Taiwan as a separate country. And then we will, then we'll be like, no, we don't, it's legal fiction. It is a fiction constructed entirely of, legal buzzwords and presumptions. Nonetheless, China's foreign ministry said on Sunday the U.S. State Department statement, quote, seriously violated U.S. promises it would only maintain cultural, economic, and other non-official ties with Taiwan. The Chinese ministry said it has lodged solemn representations with the U.S. over the comment. God, they're so testy. They're so bitchy. A congratulatory statement by Japan's foreign minister, Yoko Kamikawa, described Taiwan as, quote, an extremely crucial partner and an important friend, and was also blasted by Beijing's embassy in Tokyo as, quote, a serious interference in China's internal affairs. We're going to keep this going for like 400 more years. Like, Taiwan is going to have their own goddamn moon spaceport. And China's still going to get mad whenever anyone treats them as what they are. 2 days ago, they threatened they would crush any independence plots. Okay, I wouldn't worry too much about this. China has been saying this for literal decades. You know how North Korea and Russia have both been threatening to nuke the world every other day for like 50 years? Not 50 years for Russia's side of things, but you know how they do that shit all the time? It is a legal fiction they maintain. China has been desperately trying to groom its population to be ready for war with Taiwan, with all of the warmongering they've been doing in the South China Sea. I genuinely wonder, like, they're running up against a limit, as their age problem gets worse, as more and more of China's population, the population boom they had during the 70s, fades away into retirement, and their working population gets younger and younger. They're not going to be able to support a war economy or even like much of a military at all. Like, they'll have a military, but war, even a war with a country like Taiwan, is very expensive and difficult, especially like occupation afterwards. And Taiwan doesn't have the kind of like natural wealth that you could exploit to finance that operation on its own. I wonder if like past a point, the Chinese population is going to be so discontented with its economic situation that it's not going to, I don't think the Chinese people have much of an appetite for war, to be honest, Like, China is desperately trying, to get their population like ready for war. They're trying to get everyone like war pilled and combat maxing. China removes official after video game rules spark turmoil. They've been limiting the amount that young people can play video games. China removed an official at a government body overseeing its press and publications regulator, 5 sources who were briefed on the matter said, days after Chinese gaming stocks were hit by proposed rules to curb spending on video games. Tencent, the people who run League of Legends and Valorant, like, their stocks took a huge hit. China's a massive market for their games, obviously, and China's been cracking down on, like, young people playing video games. Now, the reason they're doing this is, there are 2 reasons they're doing this. 1, they want young people to work. And 2, they want young people to breed. They desperately need China's young population to like right the curve on the population decline. And at the moment, they're not, is the problem. It's not working. And when you're dealing with problems like this, you're like desperately trying to get your population like geared up. Yeah, make more babies, get ready for war. I don't think the Chinese population wants it. Genuinely, like, I could be off on this. I know that the Chinese population is so massive that any generalizations about it are going to like miss for literally hundreds of millions of people. My understanding is that there is a very strong chauvinistic streak in many Chinese people. You know, we are the empire of Asia, blah, 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 we're the world power, so on. As if Americans don't do that too. I think that, you know, there are definitely like reactionary elements to a significant portion of the Chinese population, just based on what I've seen from like demographic polling. Obviously, Han supremacy is kind of taken at, you know, for granted in many parts of China as like a presumption, a cultural weight. That being said, I don't get the vibe that the average Chinese 18-year-old guy wants to die in the South China Sea. I don't know. There are some countries where I get that vibe. In Russia, I get that vibe. You know, I don't know. This is a vibe check kind of deal. I get that vibe there. In Azerbaijan, I kind of get that vibe a little bit, you know? I don't know if that's the case with China. And I think the reason for that is because as recently as like the early 70s, China was like poor. Like China was like destitute poor. You know what I mean? And they had an economic miracle, obviously. Like they had the famine, then the population boom, and then you had the Dengist reforms, and you had like a middle class start to be created in China. And as a consequence of that, Chinese Gen Xers, the people that would be our Generation X, those guys went literally from that generation's parents were like, you know, when I was your age, we were boiling boot leather and chewing on it for sustenance. And they grew up getting to have like 3 meals a day, some of them, you know? So I think that a lot of that satisfaction with like improved material circumstances kind of like transfers over, and to an extent it lends itself, you know, a kind of entitlement, right? Think of modern day American Gen Alpha and Gen Z people who look up jealously as boomers and Gen Xers like scooped up the last bit of generational wealth in this country, you know? People born 15, 20 years ago, no, they're never going to own a house, a lot of them. There's a lot of resentment, a lot of discontent. And I ask you, how many people from Gen Alpha today want to join the military? That's not a vibe check. You can go look at the military statements. They are having a lot of trouble filling their posts. They aren't. Just the current situation, the inequality, the economic crisis, it's not leading young people to, I guess, a feeling of great, I don't know, patriotism. I think circumstances are different in countries like Russia, where not only did you have an economic crisis, but from the perception of the average Russian, not only are you subject to nonstop 24/7 state media, but also like the only thing keeping your country together is Vladimir Putin, a strongman. I think that that's their perception. I think that perception lends itself more to people being willing to throw themselves into a meat grinder than what's going on in China. So I don't know, like if China's going to do something about Taiwan in a military sense, I think they're running out the clock a little bit. I actually don't think time is on their side, because I think that the longer, the more time passes, the more people's discontent in China will be directed against the CCP. That's just a guess, not an expert. That's just a feeling that I have. That's not to say China's not a threat. They're a huge threat to Taiwan. Just that it's, there are other forces involved.